All right, guys, thank you once more, and thank you for joining this hangout by Channels Beam. I am Victor Matthias, and today we'll be looking at developments in the education system. Of course, you've heard about rioting and protests by students of Lagos State University, University of Lagos, most some months ago, Bowen University, Caleb University, and even students of the University of Ife. Well, what could be the causes of all these protests? What led to these protests? And why are these protests happening? Three questions, all meaning the same thing. But of course, I know we have four callers on this hangout. Perkins is just joining, so we have five. First of all, we have Godi Wogu. Godi is calling from Prague in the Czech Republic. Olumuyiwa is calling from Dunedin in New Zealand. And Perkins is calling from London in England. Shala Babatunde, we don't know where you're calling from, but we'll get that as soon as we can. And then Sulaiman, thanks for joining. You're calling from Stockholm in Sweden. I'll start with you. Olumuyiwa, you came to this hangout first, and I'm looking at the fact that you're in New Zealand. It's almost 12 o'clock. I mean, it's Sunday already in New Zealand. That's you're in another year. You're just in a different day from us. So we'll give you that benefit of doubt, and because you've seen Sunday already, I will let you start. Where exactly do you think the problem is? Riots, protests, universities? It's becoming a recurring decimal in the educational system of Nigeria. Where are we getting it wrong?
Well, I think that the problem we have in our educational system right now in Nigeria, it's still a product of the decadence that is associated with Nigerian state itself. It's not something that started tomorrow. I mean, yesterday. It's something that has been on for so many years, and nobody has bothered fixing it. It's a product of failure of leadership. It's a product of failure of followership, and it's a product of an absent system, a system that is virtually non-existent. And it's so simple. You cannot build a house on an empty foundation. What you have as an educational system in Nigeria collapsed shortly after the Civil War. And then this gradual decadence started from 1975 up to this present age. And it's so unfortunate. Many of our past leaders have had the opportunity to fix it. They have just decided in their own imagination not to be willing to. And this whole thing came to a head when Obasanjo started doling out licenses to private universities. And then universities became a commercial venture that our leaders or Nigeria's leaders who have stolen so much from that country saw as an opportunity to continue to remain relevant. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry now started having licenses to operate universities, and things got really worse. So if you ask me, what you have going on is just a minute representation of what the Nigerian system itself looks like, and it's simply a failure of a system that is non-existent, made worse by an Obasanjo who probably didn't understand what it meant to give education to citizens by the way he handled the licenses he doled out, which eventually saw to the emergence of several private universities, and that in itself messed up the whole process. So there is nothing we can do about it other than for us to change the system and get things going again.
All right. Thanks for that brief background of what you just said and how you think we are where we are in terms of security. I said security, I beg your pardon, in terms of the educational system in the country. But then while we were talking, Shola was able to tell us, Shola Tunde was able to tell us he's calling from Lincoln in the UK. And then we have Nom Zephaniah. Nom, you don't seem to be like you're in the house. Nom, can you hear me? All right, Nom, where are you calling from?
I'm actually calling from Odessa, Ukraine.
From where?
Odessa, Ukraine.
Okay, thank you for joining the hangout. And we have K. Emmanuel.
You're welcome.
Yeah. K. Emmanuel, can you hear me? K. All right, well, we'll come back to everyone who is on the hangout, but once again, thanks for joining the hangout. And we're looking at, just to keep you up to speed, we're looking at developments in the educational system in private and public universities in Nigeria. Godi, you heard Olumuyiwa's preamble to this topic we're talking about. What are your thoughts exactly?
from what Lumiwa has just um, said in his opening speech. I think that our everything that what is happening in Nigeria now, we just take it from the whole because we each sector of the economy of the society that is falling apart is happening because we have not built a solid foundation for anything to remain or for anything to grow. We are more destructive than we are more, how to say, um, building legacy. I did once post on my Facebook page, and based on the happenings in our society and educational sector, and that was during the crisis, the ASU crisis. I said that, with due respect, I went to school in Nigeria. I graduated quite a long time ago. Um, with due respect to many of the people, and I know that we are very intelligent if we actually are given the right environment to study. I did say that most of the people who have graduated from university in the last 20, 25 years has been less educated than the people that has graduated prior to that time. And if you really look around the society, around the country today, you will find that there is a lot of evidence to prove that fact. An example is this: that I was speaking with a friend last year. I said, when I was in a first year in the university in 1999, we did some courses which I heard that they are still doing until now. And I'm saying, why are they still doing something which is irrelevant to what the society or the world is doing? Every year, universities, faculties actually do find funding and develop new templates or new subjects or new curriculum for their studies. But we remain and go to school and study the same thing. And it's the same thing that happens actually from the primary to the secondary, where there is no diversification of knowledge. We just actually study the same thing. So my point is that we have been stagnant in this area, and the people who did benefit properly from education in Nigeria are people who left the university environment by the turn of the 1990, I would say, because after then things started actually collapsing, and there has not been a lot of evidence. Forget the fact that there are private universities. Okay, yeah, there are private universities that are actually have offered an alternative, a better alternative than to the for government-funded universities. And why is it that we have a lot of private universities? Just like as Mwewa said, it's because government did patronize a lot of people, and people thought that, okay, why do you go to a government university when you have people or 200 students will be sitting in a classroom that is supposed to take 40 people, and then to study a course which actually is really irrelevant to them, something which they should actually have studied at the secondary education. And let me digress a little bit. I live here in Czech Republic, and here education is free of charge. The age which when they start school, you start your primary school at the age of 6, and then you finish your primary school almost at the age of 13 or 14, and then you go to secondary school, which is 4 years, and you start a university at the age of 18 or 19 for those who actually go quickly, and you finish your bachelor's degree at the age of 21, and you have your master's degree at the age of 23. Now, this is a structured system. This is a structured process, and it's like that in most of the. So Suleiman can bear me witness to in Sweden. They have the same uniformity, and there's another guy in Ukraine that can agree that they have the same uniformity in terms of how they actually learn, because you have an age when somebody can be properly developed and learn something, and after that period, it is almost impossible for you to give that same level of development and education when the person passes that stage. And this is what we are missing. We just do things, scatter, just, haphazard, and the quality is not there. So people going to private universities as an alternative, some of them do have a better, I would say, a better curriculum than what the federal government is offering at the university, and that is why most lecturers, and we have a lot of good professors and lecturers who actually do not offer the best that they should be offering to the students. Instead, they go for their personal own benefit because they go to as consultants. I had professors who were actually never coming to class. We heard that they have traveled abroad, they have gone to London, they have gone to USA to do some papers and stuff like that. And they come back. When they come back, we learn something that is supposed to you're not supposed to learn for 13 weeks. You learn it for 2.5 weeks for you to be able to write exams. This is not how you develop education. You develop knowledge in people. That is why we're surprised that we have a society full of people who are graduated but are not really properly employable, who would come and make a lot of noise and argument against this point which I'm making now. But that is a fact. How many people, or a lot of people who have graduated from the university that really come out with a knowledge that can help them to thrive in the workplace? Go to the offices and see what people graduates what they are doing. Give them a computer to type something, to write something. They are not able to do that. What are they doing? Filing papers and stuff like that. So this is the problem we have, that we are facing now, because we have not planned, and the people who actually are supposed to be planning for us are not doing it. Instead, they are doing it for themselves. It is a shame that Nigerians will be going and building universities outside Nigeria for Nigerians to go and attend, and we are actually, applauding this type of things. It's sometimes we should wake up from our madness, because it is madness.
All right, Gordy, I can see that a lot of reactions are going to come from what you were just saying, because I could see Perkins was smiling, Norm was nodding his head either in concurrence or disagreement. I'm not really sure. I can't speak for him. And Sulaiman was just calmly watching. Sulaiman, I'll come to you now. What are your thoughts? I mean, a lot has been said by the first two speakers, but I know you have something to say, probably different from what they think is one of the problems that is bedeviling the educational system of the country. But let's just hear from you, Sulaiman. What are your thoughts?
Well, I quite agree with some of the few things the previous commentators said. I think our education system is in shambles. Nigerian education system. And we can clearly see that in the results of WAEC and NECO in the past 2 or 3 years, and the products of our universities and polytechnic graduates as well. So the problem with our educational system is that it is a product of the Nigerian system. You understand what I mean?
You can go ahead and explain, Sulaiman.
Yeah, so because we should look at it from the pervasiveness of corruption that has been taking place in our land and erode our value system, lack of good governance, bad policy implementations, and so on and so forth. So I think those are the things that affect our educational system and university management, both public and private in Nigeria, that leads to so many riots that were recently experiencing from both public and private universities. And for example, I would take a Lagos as a case study, where you have a state governor that call himself a progressive governor, which happens to belong to my political party, which is APC, and he doesn't understand well, I wouldn't say he doesn't understand. I think he understands the importance of education in transforming the people from mere crowd to resource. But the state government go ahead and put higher tuition fee in a public school in a state where you have a minimum wage at 18,000. And the state, I think, if I correctly remember, charges academic tuition fee of about 200 200,000 or 250. I don't know if I'm correct. If I cut the figures correct, Victor, you can reaffirm that because you are in Lagos. But at least the tuition fee is astronomically high, and you pay 18,000 minimum wage. That disconnect the people or the children from the lower income family to have access to basic quality education, which is constitutional right in advanced country and democratic governments around the world. They see education as constitutional right. So we still didn't value education as it should be, like it is valued up here in the western part of the world. And I think that's one of our major challenges in Nigeria.
Uh, all right, Sulaiman, thank you. In a nutshell, what you're trying to say that everything boils down to corruption, and also you're looking at the fact that 18,000 naira compared to what the students are going to be paying, that's about something above 200,000 naira. There's a disconnect there. But then, thankfully, for social media, Perkins, you were in London, and I was seeing your tweets while all those things were happening. You kept sending tweets in support and not in support, all that. But now it's this is an opportunity to tell us what exactly you feel about the situation, Perkins. Looking at the fact that some people have already made mention of some things. Is it right now for the students to protest?
Protests are right. We must not take that from us. You understand? We have the liberty for peaceful gathering and demonstration. We must protest to demand what we need, and it boils down to what we really want and what we are looking out for. But I think the issue of being protest being right and all that, it's very good. But my major challenge I have always experienced, about protest, what I've seen in Nigeria in the past 2 years about protest, is all about we have this approach to protest. I think I call it a cosmetic approach to protest. We want to be saying that we are protesting. We want to be saying by the media. We want to be saying it's good, but protest doesn't end in demonstration, in physical demonstration. So for those students protesting in Lagos or some other places in Nigeria, I would advise they go through the level the doors of negotiation, the doors of dialogue and everything. So when those channels fade, then you have to come out hopefully to protest more. You know, when you begin to protest without a formal level of dialogue and everything, I think the communication there, we have to stay at a standstill and will not achieve a lot of results. Because I keep saying when we protest or more of demonstration, we must be able to measure the impacts. But that's the most important thing of going out. We must be able to measure the impact of every protest we are going to do. So if we move from that level of protest and we have results, it will encourage us to move out again, to demand more or to demand for more negotiation. So protest is good, but we must have parameters in place to measure the impacts, that the outcome of protest. That is one. And two, talking about what the previous speakers talked about, I think we are trying to blame two things that we need to address. Number one, corruption is not. I think we've hammered too much on corruption. I will say when Nigerians talk about corruption, it's good to talk about corruption, but we always see that corruption is everything we want to talk about. That is one. It is not right that corruption is the only thing affecting our educational system in Nigeria. Number two, I think giving licenses to private university, it's an opportunity also to create competition in the system. I never went to a government school. I didn't go to that's after primary level. I didn't go to a government school. It's my secondary level. I went to a private school. But in the primary level, I still I had that feeling of going to a government school. But let me tell you, the competition is not there. If you go through the level of job handling from the government school workers, that the teachers and all that, to the private, you see the difference there. The motivation is there. Their effort towards the job they are doing, it's been reflected by the results you get from the students. But it's different from what is happening right now. Everyone wants to go to a private school, everyone wants to go to a government school. But what comes out of it shows that those in private school, they are giving more attention, not because of the money they are being paid, or not because they are going to private school, but because there is a competition among private universities. So it is wise for government universities, higher institutions, to have competition among themselves, so that people will prefer going to a public university, a public higher institution, rather than a private university or a private institution. I think if we do that, yeah, we will have a better way of channeling our educational system, trying to build up everything. But I must say, we've already addressed that the quality of education, we must focus more on the quality of education. What defines qualitative education? Is it the classroom? Is it the name of the university? Is it the owner of the university? What qualifies it? So I think we should focus on what qualifies, because we already know the problems. That's what I think. We know the problems of the university system and all that, fee, price hike, and everything. What qualifies good education? We must know. We must look into that. I think that that's a line of discussion that we have to focus on also. Thank you very much.
All right, Perkins, thank you so much. Bottom line from all that you've said is what qualifies good education. I'll be posing that question to you, Shala. Shala, if you can hear me, you're calling from Lincoln in England. If I'm to go by what you just put in the chat. Shala, we can't hear you. We still can't hear you, Shala. So while you sort your audio issues, I'll be coming to Nom Zephaniah. Nom, good afternoon, and thank you for joining the hangout.
Thank you very much, sir.
All
I'm
right.
actually known from Odessa, Ukraine.
Oh, great. How is Odessa?
Everything is fine. We are
All right.
moving. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining the hangout. So, I mean, there's just been so much that has been said. Some have blamed all these things on the institutional failures of the country. Some have blamed it on corruption. But most recently, the last speaker is saying that the main bone of contention should be what qualifies good education. In your own opinion, or in your own thoughts, what do you think qualifies that statement? What qualifies good education? Let me just put it simply.
I think from what the other speaker have said, I think they've done justice to most of the topics or most of the things that is happening in the Nigerian educational system. When you look at it, I totally disagree with what my other colleagues said about the issue of corruption is not part of it. Corruption is part of the educational system of Nigeria. Why did I say so is because sometimes you find out that most of the people that are there in the government, they tend to neglect, not that they don't know the right thing to do, in order to bring good quality in the aspect of educational system of Nigeria. But most of them, they tend to go for selfish interest, indulging in some of these corruptions and so many stuff that are not supposed to be in terms of educational system. In terms of implementing so many things in the educational system, you find out that they find it very difficult, because most of these people in government, you find out that their children are not even studying in Nigeria. Most of them are studying abroad. And if most of them are studying abroad, then that means they have no contribution in order to do for them to impact the country educational system. And that is why even when the polytechnics, the university are going on strike, they tend to keep quiet because it's not affecting their own children in those universities. So that's one of the aspects. And talking about private and government or federal universities in Nigeria, you find out that in private university, everything, the facilities there are all kept in good order. They have good qualified professors compared to the private, the federal universities. And you will discover that in the federal university, most at times they find it very difficult to implement some of these funds that calling figures most times in papers and in all other media houses, but yet they are not implementing. And that is why in private university you find out that the lecturers are doing well, the lecturers are busy going about their activities, about their job, but in private university people tend to neglect that because the government is not giving more attention. In fact, even the payment system is very poor, in sense that sometimes they don't even get the actual or the due day that they are meant to be paid is not being paid, and it causes delay. Nobody is there to challenge, or nobody there is there to make any difference. Okay, if someone is not there to pay me in accordance to the timing, then why do I need to put more effort? If the government will look at the aspect of payment and the aspect of every other settlement in the educational system of Nigeria, I think it will help a lot. In times of giving admission is also a problem. You find people staying, students staying at home for more than 5, 6 years. Some people spend more than 10 years seeking for just an admission. For goodness sake, it's not done that way. So instead of wasting time waiting for government or federal university admission, you find out that parents do consider, okay, instead of wasting time, let's just fix our children in university whereby they don't have to suffer in order to secure admission. The processes are just too tight in government education, in government university, and that's not supposed to be so. We are government and we are saying we are living in democracy. So if really we are living in democracy, people are meant to be free, to be happy. But you find out that in the educational system, most of the students are not being happy because of what is happening. You finish from your jam, you go to post-UME. From post-UME, they will tell you that this, different issues, corruption is everywhere, and it's really battling with our educational system. So I think if the government will really sit down and look at it in that aspect, okay, it's not about family, it's not about public uh, other issues, but it's about public interest. We put you people there, okay, you give us the best. Facilities are not there. Well, I discovered there are so many years ago when I was in Nigeria trying to study in one of the university in Nigeria. Most times the 300 level students don't, the university students don't go close to computer until they are 300 level, and you find out that a student is studying computer science until 300 level before he can be able to have access to computer. Is crazy. It's not helping matters. That's why sometimes you find graduate computer school, computer graduate engineering cannot be able to on or switch such shut down system because he has no access to those things. At least we need to compare and see what are some of the things that need to be put in place in some of these universities for students to have a conducive environment of learning and so many other things. And I think if the government will be able to look at those things and be able to balance the equation, the private university in Nigeria are doing well. They don't go on strike. The facilities there are good. So if I am a parent, for goodness sake, I'll prefer my son or my daughter to study in private university because the facilities they are there, the practicals are there, but you can't just be bugging me all the time with theory and not practicals and nothing more. So I think the government needs to do something in order to put those things in order. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Zafanaya. But I mean, I do appreciate all your comments. I mean, how you've commended the private universities. But of recent, we just saw Caleb University and Bowen. They were also in this. They were also engaged in protests. How do you explain that?
Well, actually, the Bowen University and which other university you said?
Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb. Actually, there must be a reason when when students are protesting, then that means something also has to be done or something has been going wrong in the system. It's very possible that the system in the private universities is also bad, but not as to be compared with the federal university, because most times the worst situation we can see in Nigeria is happening with the federal universities. So I believe with the protests in those two universities, it means systems are not all good, but there are systems that are far better than others. And I think the private universities there are doing the best in terms of making things work out in most of these places. the issue of the protest, I believe it should go a long way, maybe in terms of the increase in tuition fee. If the government will put a high tuition fee, or if the government will say, okay, this is what we have to do, but they will give the quality, I believe the parents will not bother. We pay huge amounts of money to send words to abroad to go and study. Like me now, if I happens to be in Nigeria to study, if they happens to give me the good quality of education, there is no need of us leaving our country to come to abroad to study, because the same system of education that has been given in abroad is not the same thing. The standard is all different. And I believe if they are able to look at it in that point, then and try to balance the issue, then it will work out fine.
All right. So,
Matthias, can I say something, please?
okay, go ahead, Perkins.
Sorry, before we move further, we were talking about corruption. Norm made mention of it also. Who feeds corruption in Nigeria? If not you and I, then our parents. Let's be sincere. We can. It's very easy to blame the government, the state, the local government, everybody. Who feeds corruption? If you know you wrote your examination and you had everything and you got your admission to the university from the back door, then you can repeat your share to say, I am fighting corruption. But some of us will be at home, our parents will secure admission for us. We don't even know how it came about. We got admission without even going to the center, and those that went to the center to write exam, they had higher grades than us. But we will get to the university before them because our parents will make a phone call and we'll get to the university. Who feeds corruption? We cannot fight corruption if we do not starve corruption. It is easier to talk about corruption, but until we starve corruption, I have said here before, I enrolled my younger cousin in an examination. The next thing he told me that he's preparing for a special center. For God's sake, if I can encourage him for a special center, a miracle center, and pay for him to write exam, I am contributing to the corruption we're talking about in Nigeria. It is easier for us to talk about corruption. And two, in Nigeria education system, I have discovered we only study to write exam. We do not study to develop ourselves. And that is an area God talked about. We must develop ourselves as educationists. We must develop ourselves in knowledge and in skills. You understand what I mean? You cannot be studying computer science. For God's sake, I did my first degree in Nigeria. I went abroad. I did my first degree again. On the same course, but with a difference. On the same course, but with a difference. So, that the quality of education I keep talking about is, what are you doing for those people? Are you making them to have a Nigerian can cram a full textbook and go and pour in exam? When he gets back from that examination, or ask him what happened, he cannot even tell you the understanding of that subject. That is to say, we are prepared for the examination and we are not prepared for life. That's why I wrote there that we don't have committed lecturers in Nigeria. They are all after bribing, they are after everything. If students can take up action, student union, they are sleeping, SUG, they are sleeping, take up action, demand change from your lecturers. If any lecturer meets a girl, I need to sleep with you to give you a higher mark or a pass. When that girl can expose that man, demand that man is being sacked, regardless of what it is. But no, we are compromised. Who will go first? If I go, I will not pass the course. So that's what it is. We'll keep rolling, we'll keep rolling, we'll keep rolling. So yeah, that's what it is.
All right. So just before I come to you,
Sorry,
Bobby,
can I say something? I want to respond to what Pekin said about feeding corruption.
okay, Sulaiman, make it quick, please. We're running
The
out of
point
time.
is, of course, Pekin was right by saying we feed corruption. But we cannot feed corruption without an environment for corruption to be fed, because the government creates environment for us to feed the corruption through bad policies, bad governance, and so on and so forth. You can't blame the parents, desperate parents of kids that want to send their children to schools, through whatsoever means. And the simple reason it's because we lack access. There is no access, adequate or equal access to quality education. Not quality education, to education in Nigeria. So parents are desperate to send their children to school. If we have access, like you have up here in United Kingdom, in whatsoever, in all advanced countries, no any parents will pay their way for their kids to be sent to universities, like what we had here, like what we have here. So that's the thing. We feed corruption because the government create environment for us to feed the corruption by not having access to quality education and so on and so forth.
All right, Suleiman. So just before I come back, just in wrapping up this conversation, I'll be reading through some of the comments that were dropped in the chat box. Perkins was the one who started the conversation. He said we also need to focus on how valuable our education system is in Nigeria, and he says going to school and being educated are two different sides of the coin. He adds that it is sad that we don't have much committed public lecturers in Nigeria. They are greedy and selfish. But Tunde Shola replies and he says, I believe what constitutes a good university is the standard. In the United Kingdom, there's a minimum standard a university must acquire before starting a course or program, sound board of directors and vice chancellors, followed by administrative staff and staff members. Godi added that we have federal universities in all states, and he's wondering why and asking if it is necessary. He's also wondering why we can't diversify our faculties and make them more autonomous and self-funding. Shola Tunde also adds again, he's saying he graduated from Lincoln University and in his final year, all lecturers were told, I beg your pardon, to reapply for their jobs and the criteria is they need to be involved in research. He says we don't have this in Nigeria. As the first speaker said, most of our lecturers are garbage in, garbage out. Well, Perkins also adds that we must learn to take responsibility at least. And then Godi comes back to say, I need to speak. Well, Godi, it is your time to speak. But just before you speak, Norm just dropped a comment as well. He says, well, all educational system takes good standard, and that is the main difference between ours and other countries. Godi, it's your time to speak just as you requested. Go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, a lot of the points that has been raised have been very, very good in the way they are because we really need to see why we are having the same problem. And like I said in the opening speech, it is an institutional problem that is actually we take the attitude we take to everything. Now we say we are a docile nation, we're docile people, and then we just don't care as long as it will be solved. And then that reminds me of just drifting a little bit from what's going now. Watching BBC Hard Talk the other day, the special advisor on the president actually saying that we have Nigerian way, we solve the problem Nigerian way. And he said, okay, so it goes down to how we deal with issues because we think that we have a Nigerian way, and you ask yourself, a country that has been left to govern itself for over 50 years is still say they have a way that still doesn't actually help to the lives of the people. Now, I want to take this discussion in a different direction. It sickens me when lecturers of the Nigerian universities embark on a strike. And this is actually, a lot of people are for and against it. And there are a lot of conversations that are like, okay, the lecturers are saying, yeah, we are not asking for our own money, we are asking for it to be funded, for university to be funded, for university to be properly taken care of, because we cannot continue to teach in this environment because this is not working, that is not working. And I say to myself, lecturers, most of you have been academicians in quote, with due respect, for over 25 years. How many of you have engaged in an active research? How many of you that are in the area of science and technology that have actually seeking for funding to build a laboratory, to work on a research, to come up with something? Isn't it a shame that in Nigeria we have how many professors of electrical or chemical engineering and whatever that we still are not able to find a way to deal with energy crisis which we have that is affecting our ability to power the streets of Nigeria and actually puts a lot of things in order. We are still talking about that, these issues over all these years. So many of you actually are going abroad for sabbatical, which is being funded by the university, and you just go there and you do nothing. You take your family and you come back and stuff like that, and you hand out 10 paper to the students to just go and study and come prepare for exam. It is actually disgracing and disgusting that you would actually be fighting or saying that you're going on strike. So this actually, if the lecturers who wants to develop, because they say education is the bedrock of the society, and somebody said that it is different. There's a difference between going to university and being educated. We actually have that issue in our country. Everybody wants to go to university, not because many people know or believe that they can be educated, or they have a different mindset going to the school and coming out with something different. How many people today, if you go and ask people who are writing JAM that wants to go to university, and that will tell you that they want to pursue a career in engineering and want to follow it through. They want to pursue a career in political science and administration and follow it through. They want to pursue a career in accounting, in tax, in financial, or monetary, whatever, in tax law, in all this type of law, and want to come out at the university and say, let us look for those career paths that will help us for the thing that we have gone to university to go to school. I mean, I wanted to study medicine in Nigeria, trying to pass the exam to go in there. In the end, going and finding myself in the secondary, I call it secondary faculty, which is next to that, to study. Because, and then you find out that that dream of following through that career actually has been truncated due to either my own inability to pass or the system did not actually support me in actually achieving this dream. This is the issue which we have to look at. How are we actually trying to say that somebody wants to be educated, follows that dream through? And in that way, we see that are people really coming out of the university with the same dream and vision that they had while they were going in there? People lose the faith in the middle of the year after how many series of exams and writing, having one problem or the other and carry over and whatever and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stress and pressure for you to graduate. So these are the things that we have to look at. The people funding or managing education has to really come out and say, why do we have this situation that we get people go into university, come out, and we still say, look at my students who I graduated, but still cannot actually make me proud. Whose fault is it? Is it the student's fault or the lecturer? And there is a lot of barrier, a lot of gap which the lecturers place between them and the students. Just as we are not able to approach our politicians, many students are not able to approach their lecturers.
All right. Gordy, I'll tell you one thing. All the things you're saying will surely and hopefully will be looked into by the authorities. But again, one thing I must tell you, one thing I must assure you is that if today you decide to run for president, Norm and Perkins will be the first to declare their support for you, because they were just nodding, I'm sure, in concurrence and smiling while you were talking. But as I said earlier, we're just about to wrap up this conversation. Cosmos, I see you. You're just joining the conversation. I know you are in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. We do appreciate your visit, but unfortunately, we can't take your comment. We're actually running out of time. Thanks for coming on the Hangout, and maybe next time you will make your contributions. So just going back and in rounding up, I mean, I just have one concern in terms of course, this topic we're talking about. Thankfully, some of you studied, as you all admitted, you studied in Nigeria before leaving. For us who studied, I mean, went to universities in Nigeria, I don't know what happens to our projects, because those are researches as well. So what happens?
Can I comment first?
Okay, Perkins.
Please
make it short, because we're running.
Yeah, in 2 minutes or in 1 minute. Please, don't even talk about our projects. In Nigeria, I can tell you that over 80%, or let me say 85%, they are copy and paste. Don't even talk about it. They are not research work, they are copy and paste.
Okay,
I can tell you, this is what I'm saying. So we do not understand the level of plagiarism in Nigeria. We just go. I have seen projects of even a year old. Somebody will just go photocopy, rebind, and submit. They will give him A. The lecturers don't read. How will they know this is a research work? So let's forget about it. Don't talk about our projects. Like I talk about research and development. Before I round up, please let Nigeria University invest more on research and development. If we can do that, we attract private investors funding a project for the university, and that will make the university a greater. Thank you very much.
All right, so for you guys that are studying abroad, your PhDs, your MSCs, and even those that are doing their BSCs, what happens to your projects after you're done with your study? Are you going to bring them back to Nigeria, search for people who can fund them, or you will just leave them in the countries where you are studying? Olumuyiwa, let me take you on this, and of course, I just want you to respond in a few seconds, just like Perkins did.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
let me just quickly say that part of the conditions of graduation here in New Zealand, I'm doing my PhD in politics, is that you must publish 2 papers out of your thesis before you can graduate. Unlike in Nigeria where nobody even cares, nobody tells you about publication. So you must put your research, you must translate your research into publications. And if you're in the sciences, engineering and or whatnot, you are allowed to at least create to what they call intellectual property by getting started an innovation or something from your research. But in humanities here, you must publish. If you don't publish, you cannot defend your thesis. That doesn't happen in Nigeria because the system doesn't allow that, or because there's no system. So it's a different ballgame entirely. I'd said it when the program opened. What you have is a systemic problem. You cannot patch a system. You either get a new system or you continue to suffer. I think it's as concise as that. And I don't know. Until we fix that, we're gonna keep having problems.
All right, so just before we go, I'll just look at some comments that are in the comment box. Perkins is also adding that we don't have the Nigerian solution. If we do, it is too slow, it is not working, and we must refocus the spectrum. He adds that research and development in Nigeria's university is taking the last seat. We need to wake up. He says that I published my first research people under my BSc course, peer-reviewed though paper. I'm not really sure what you're trying to say there, Perkins. I think you must have misspelled some things, but we do understand and we do appreciate all that you guys have contributed. Ben, you are in Malaysia. Thanks for joining the Hangout. Godi, you are in Prague, in Ukraine. Nom is in Odessa. As well. Oh, okay, Godi, you're in Czech Republic. Sorry about that. Nom is in Odessa, in Ukraine. Olumiwa, it's already Sunday in New Zealand, but you stayed up and you're here trying to find a solution to what is happening back in your country. I hope that your sleepless night will not be in vain. Perkins, you are in London. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your contributions. And Sulaiman, you are in Stockholm in Sweden. Thanks for joining the Hangout. And Godi also adds, just before we go, that students should be grouped with lecturers, not more than 15 students, he says, per lecturer. Perkins also agrees with him. If we stay here, we're going to take comments and take. This solution lies somewhere, and I just hope those in authority will do their best to take these solutions and implement them so that we have a better educational system free of riots and protests by students. Once again, this is a Channels Beam production. I am Victor Matthias. Until I see you guys next week, it's goodbye.
Thank you very much.